Hey guys, I'm learning TFT and I'm sharing my learnings with you so that you can learn in the process and I can learn more effectively as well. In today's video, I'm going to go through a Marcel P video where he works with the TFT Coaching Plus Discord community to share the best final patch comps on PBE, which will likely be quite similar to the meta as the patch goes live for set 14 on Wednesday. Marcel reached regionals in set 13. He's been ranked 2 in NA, and he's consistently been rising in the esports scene. And for Project PBE, if you're not familiar, it's a program run by Kai for specifically 1K plus LP players from last set. So I was fortunate enough to be able to participate in this tournament. And Marcel specifically did really well. So the top 25 players, I believe, or something like that, 32-ish, were able to play in this Project PBE tournament out of 350 or so players. And after day one, Marcel was overall third. And he put together this analysis after day one of the tournament. I am reviewing this video after day two. So Marcel made final lobby and he ended up fourth place in this tournament here. And Q, and you could definitely recognize like Tidal and Ahau, lots of Asia region players. I think there were not that many NA players playing in Project PBE, but Marcel does a very detailed breakdown into these specific comps as well as some conditional comps, talking about what makes them strong. So if you want to get a jump start on what the meta looks like going into live for set 14, this is the video for you, since Marcel has been playing against some of the best players in the world who have really been investing a lot of time and energy into PBE to figure out what's broken, what works really well, just to give you a head start. And I apologize today, I don't have the time to put together a meta mindset because my kids, my daughter had a softball game yesterday that I coach, and my son had a basketball game today that I coach as well. So I did want to get this video out sooner rather than later. So I'm skipping the meta mindset for today, but it will come back. So don't worry about that. So with that said, here is Marcel's video, and I'm going to be note taking in the process. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
It's looking like this patch will be very similar to what will be launched. But yeah. So I don't typically maintain like a really well organized tier list or anything like that. I typically just lean on other people's tier lists like when everything's sort of solved. But nonetheless, like I've been playing a ton, and so I've been seeing what people have been playing a lot. And so let me share this doc in chat. I bolded the comps that people are playing a lot, listed out conditions, and have variants of the comps and sort of how to play them. And I'll focus on the bolded ones. And then if you have questions about the other lines, we can also go over those. And also depends on how much time we have. VC chat. This is the doc I'm working with. So I would say overall, the meta feels not very degen in that there are many lines you can play: AP, AD items, reroll, non-reroll. The comps I'll call out that I think are very noteworthy that you should really know if you want to play well in this meta. I don't think you have to know like truly everything on this list, but the ones you really want to not miss are one, Nitro. I think Nitro is quite overpowered with Jhin being really strong now. Nitro Jhin especially. And then Strategist Annie especially is the comp that's probably winning majority of the games without any exceptional conditions. In the tournament, this is definitely winning tons of games, like even against really strong reroll boards that have insane caps. This board, even with very few combat augments, can win. TF has played a lot and is able to net you really consistent placements, like third through sixth. Sometimes if you get really lucky, you either get Syndicate +2, or you had everything 3-star and the lobby's not super high cap. You can even take top 2, top 1. Divinicorp is very solid as well. Can be played in many ways around Zed, Senna, Vex, as like you're playing for around 3 or 4 costs. And then if you are in a spot to play around 5 costs, it also caps very high. If you're like sort of in the middle, you throw an 8, you can play around Z plus 5 costs. And so this is another line that is very good. You can also cheese fights against the really good Annie boards when the Annie player doesn't position around your Z. You kill the Annie, and then all of a sudden you have a really good chance of winning those fights, even though their board may have much higher value than yours. I'll say those are the main comps. The other comp that people I'd say is quite overplayed, that did poorly in the tournament and overall in Project PBE, is the Xayah board, mostly because it was very good to start out on PBE, and I would say now it's a lot more conditional. And so it's quite overplayed. Maybe you guys are noticing that as well. It's still quite good given certain conditions. I guess I'll briefly cover this now before I jump into the other ones, because I'm sure people know this comp. Maybe you guys overplayed as well. I view it as very conditional on having really good items, meaning Rage Blade Gunblade, or Rage Blade Gunblade Flux Capacitor, and having insanely good combat. So having like Spirit Link, like prismatic bulky buddies, things that scale your bastions a lot. And then also if you're playing it from behind, or Cypher is another condition where you get a bunch of you're basically up an augment or two on the lobby based on your Cypher cash out. And then the other thing is if you're gonna fall low in HP, you have to realize this comp really needs Renekton. Like having insanely good Xayah items and good frontline and good augments is still not enough. Eventually you'll lose because your DPS just doesn't match these boards, this one and this one, without a Renekton with items at the very least like a TG or Renekton 2, but you could still lose even with that if you roll bad TG items. So yeah, that's sort of my view on the Xayah comp. If there are no questions around that, then I'll start jumping into each of these bolded comps. Okay, so maybe start with the Jhin comp first, which is the simpler one. You guys all know this Nitro board. I would say before I jump into like what the board is, which will be pretty quick as well. My notes on this line are the Jhin items really, really matter. Rage Blade is awful. Shojin, very, very good. I think ideal is Shojin plus 2 damage items. I think rolling on 5 is very, very good in this line compared to rolling on 6. It's much better than rolling on 6 because you get to play around the T-Rex, which really helps your cap. You get to save a bit of gold, which helps you hit because you're not leveling. Your odds on hitting 1 and 2, the Jhin 3 is not even that much worse on 5, given the extra gold you have to not pump it to XP. You get to juice up your stacks, your chrome stacks. And the level 6 isn't even that helpful for you, usually. Sometimes you get, like, I guess you can Elise in, but or like another Bastion unit. But all it does is save you some HP at the cost of really fucking your cap. So I would say this board you really want to roll on 5. I have been playing this and been seeing this played from like having Nitro in early, because I feel like the stacks help so much of your game. It helps your mid game because you have more HP in the turret. It also helps your late game with the T-Rex. So I don't know if this line is worth playing without like really early Nitro. Maybe if you had like Nidalee to Kindred to Jhin and not the third Nitro and good items, you can probably still play this because I mean the rest of your board is good. You're just like waiting room for one Shyvana. And so the board left side here is core, obviously, and then here are like some your more natural extensions. Xayah Sejuani for your Exotech / Now Fury. If you're like angling Nidalee 3 with like a TG or maybe you have items on her, and you didn't 3-star your Shyvana, then Now Fury becomes a little more valuable. You can also 3-star Now Fury. And then your 5 costs, which you can get to either high roll on 8 or you like get to hit yourself really early and push levels. Aurora for +1 Dynamo, and you have value on bench. Renekton, in case the Exotech item is not very good, as a better Bastion than Sejuani sometimes, just depends. If you expect Sejuani to cast on it, Sejuani 2 is better. Garen is very, very useful because you can get things like Rapid Fire or Dynamo on the units that they don't have those traits. And then Viego, Techie is a very good frontline. You can think of it as like stall or frontline trait, where you damage reduce your opponents. As far as augments for this line, it's pretty straightforward. I don't know if I have very much to say about like the Nitro specific augments because I feel like it's hard to really judge the strength of those. There's a turret one and the one that gives I think gold on 3-star. I haven't played those enough, and I haven't seen them enough, so I can't comment on those in particular. But standard reroll stuff like Starry Night is obviously very good. I don't think there are any artifacts that truly stand out with this comp. So the Portable Forge is probably still takeable, but it's not like, oh, you must play this line. Having many items is good because you can itemize. If you're gonna 3-star everything, which you kind of should try to. More items always help in reroll. And then things like no scout, no pivot. Initially, I thought was bad. Oh, one note here is no scout, no pivot. At the moment, resets your on Nitro when you hit T-Rex, which really sucks. But if you hit really early and you're head in HP, it doesn't matter. You'll start stacking up again on your T-Rex. But I guess the game like thinks of the T-Rex as a different unit, and so you lose all your no scout, no pivot stacks on your turret, and you have to start from 0 again on T-Rex. But I still in tournament I play this line with no scout, no pivot. And it still ended up fine because it was a spot where I hit really early a bunch of stuff. And the T-Rex came, lost all the stacks, and you start stacking it up again. But yeah, just Jhin Prio, you definitely want to make frontline items still in this comp. I think maybe you can get baited to thinking that your T-Rex is enough frontline, but you still want more. So you definitely don't want to over-index on either frontline or backline. You play pretty balanced, I would say. And one other thing is like you have to trust that you will spike on the 3-stars. I think if you like start to get nervous around your HP because you're playing like a low-level board and you can lose HP, you might get baited into leveling early and or like jamming really weird items just to save HP, and you have to not do that because it really fucks your cap, which is what you need. Like this comp is like a fake real comp in that you have a pretty high cap. You'll lose to like these boards, but besides these boards, you'll beat most of the boards if you truly have good items, good setup. Preparation is also really, really insane. For most of these comps, preparation is obviously very good at reroll. And the main reason preparation I think is very, very good is that there are very few augments that give stats. I think the only other one, if I'm not mistaken, besides like the item scaling ones, like item collector, is the prismatic one that gives you 4 calculated enhancement. But besides that, all other combat basically gives you like amp or crit. And so preparation can scale with those really well. Because you can scale this with other augments, right? Which give you AS, like or crit, amp, right? I'm pretty sure preparation I'll be able to say this on almost every comp. And I think gold is better, but even the silver is very good. And the reason gold is better is it requires you to play a certain way, and you get more value out of playing that way. Where you play a little weak, you lose a little bit of gold, so you're holding all this stuff on your bench, and at least you get more oomph out of it when you're playing gold. But I still think silver is very good as well. Any questions around this variant of Nitro?
Yeah, just a couple from me. With preparation, if you're re-rolling, because I haven't played the game, it was like last in the game. If say I've got a Jhin 2 on the board and I'm rolling, and I hit Jhin 3 with one that was on my bench, do I need to swap the Jhins to get preparation, or will the one on the bench give it to the one that I have on my board? If that makes sense.
Yeah, you should always get when they combine, you should always get the highest stacks.
Okay.
At least that's how it was before. And I would expect it to still be the same. I mean, this game, you never know. Maybe there's some weird bug now, but I would expect that it is still the case that it just takes time.
Okay.
What if one has 2 and the other has 3? Do they combine to make 5, or just it take?
They don't add up. As far as I remember, and I'm pretty sure about this, they don't add up. They just get the highest one.
Okay. So
that's with most stacking mechanics on units. Yeah.
So in an odd situation where you super high roll really fast, just be aware that you have to keep one on the bench to stack it.
Yeah. So one other thing you can do is I wouldn't worry too much about. Let's say you have 3 stacks, and let's say you hit the 3-star. You definitely shouldn't lock or not make it. Because you can always stack on neutrals, right?
Right.
So let's say you're 3 stacks on your most important unit, just make the 3-star, and then you get the 4th stack on your wolves. You can get the 5th stack on stage 4 neutrals, and it's the same with other units. If usually you will prefer to play your strongest board over greeding stacks. The exception to that is if you're on a loss streak. Right? You're on a loss streak. You have no real reason to greed, one kill or breaking your loss streak. You're not really spiking just yet. Then greed your preparation stacks. Right? You should definitely be playing around your streak because that represents your economy, which is your cap eventually.
Just one more. How much weight are you putting on the Exotech item? I played this line earlier with Pulse Stabilizer, the red one, and in fact it was really good. Got first with that. Obviously, I know the other one, Hyperfang's decent on Jhin. Obviously, the tank ones don't matter. Do you factor that in at all when picking the line? Because was one less item you want to make on Jhin.
Yeah, it definitely factors in. I wouldn't say that the line's unplayable without those items, without the juice, right? The really good Jhin items, especially Pulse Stabilizer. But if you have good reason to play this line without the items, for example, Jhin copies or many copies of the Nitro units, or you have Nitro in early, and you have good components, I wouldn't shy away from this line just because you have some trash. Let's say you have Hollow Bow, I would still play this line. It's so broken that it just helps the cap, and it helps your mid game as well because you get more items, and as we were saying, more items is good in this comp. But it's still very good even without that. And in fact, you don't even really need to play Exotech if you're in a good spot. You find 5 costs randomly on 8 when you're trying to roll for Sejuani, which is typically the unit you really want to play when you're playing Exotech. You want to find Sejuani Zeri, right? But let's say you don't find these, and let's say you find these, who cares? Just don't play Exotech. You don't the stats don't even do that much for your Jhin. It's some AS, which isn't that great on this unit, which you can understand by seeing his Rageblade stats. Usually a unit you can tell if they like AS in general. You can just see if Rageblade is a good item on them. That's one way you can sort of proxy, if AS is really useful for a unit. And here, this AS is not. I mean, it's very small, right? Any other thoughts on the Jhin variant? I'll briefly cover this Elise one.
I did have one question. How strong is this? Are you willing to contest for this, or are there kind of common escape plans if you see someone is also playing the line?
Yeah, so I think you can definitely play around these early. So I would say Nitro as just a trait is quite strong. Stage 2, 3, you can even keep playing it if you're not rerolling, and if you have some expectation that you can get the really high value units with good gold, you can play around Nitro and then eventually either pivot out or even keep it and play around other units. If you see that you're contested, I would say I usually avoid playing 1-2 cost reroll contested unless I have really good reason to believe. Let's say I take Starry Night, or obviously no scout, no pivot, you're forced to. But without either of those, I'm not really down to contest. Just because your EV is so much worse, you're gonna hit so much later. This is a comp where you want to hit, and then you want to your board definitely is not anywhere near its cap when you're at. Even if you're at Nidalee 3, Shyvana 3, Jhin 3, Kindred 3, you really need the other stuff. You're a big Sejuani ult is a really big deal. The 5 costs, if you can get to, assuming you have these early do the econ augments or whatever, are really big deals. And if you play contested, you'll get stuck on just this left side of the board, and that's it. You'll be level 7 0 gold, and you're where's my Sejuani? Because you spent all your gold contesting, and you may not even hit your stuff. But even if you do, your cap is still so bad. And so I definitely avoid contesting this. But that doesn't mean you don't hold these units. You just play them, and then I guess that transitions well to this variant, which reinforces the fact that Nitro is very good, even if you're not re-rolling, because the turret is so much HP, and if you're playing from ahead, you can still get the tier X with no 3 stars. The stats show this as well, where Nitro as a trait is still quite good, even without you just keep it in the board. So I played this a couple times I think in tournament, where usually from Elise orb with AP items, or you have Elise and you have a component anvil, and all your opening components are AP, but you have all the Nitro units already. So you play tempo, and you play around Elise item holder into rolling on 8, and you can either try to pivot into if you're really ahead, you can try to play around Aurora, you can chase Elise, and then you try to duo MF Aurora and Elise. It can easily let you a top 3. If you hit stuff, you can even go higher than that. But if you hit your 2-star 4 costs or 5 costs really early, you can place higher than that. But basically, the Nitro turret is so strong, and that keeping it, if you've stacked it up early, I mean, I would say you only really do this if you have the stacks early and you're not really in a spot to reroll the whole board. And the reason you wouldn't be in a spot to reroll the whole board is if you have, one example is AP items, right? Because if you have AP items, why are we sitting there rolling for Kindred and Jhin, Italy? At that point, just play on the Elise, hit the Elise, and keep Nitro, because you can play Elise with the other Vanguards and Dynamo. But if you've already stacked up your Nitro, I'm pretty sure Nitro is better to have rather than sitting there rolling for a 2-star Leona and wasting gold, which you could otherwise just spend on leveling and finding other high quality units.
Gotcha, thank you. I was in this exact spot earlier today, and I kind of half committed to pivoting to Elise, and I had already built IE, so I felt committed to Jhin, and I probably should have just leveled and played Elise, save the IE for MF. So this helps. Thank you.
I think it's a little more challenging if you've built an IE already, because I feel like if you've committed 2 components to an AD item, it delays unless you have a million items, it delays your full Elise build. And so then at that point, I would say either you basically want to have your three items on a single unit, like same damage type first. And so if you committed to an IE, I would say even if you find early Elise 2, I would be hesitant to play around Elise at that point. And I would likely stay and try to play around the Jhin. Then again, like I think I could be wrong about this, but I think Shojin is a lot nicer as a first item than IE. But I think I don't find though, because I don't know if it's fine in terms of item, in terms of component efficiency. I think for like board strength, having the Shojin first is better because I think Jin's cast is really, really good. But as far as item component efficiency, you can use lots of gloves, you can use tiers for frontline, and so you can even make a blue buff on your Kindred if you're hitting Kindred 3, and so and obviously swords are very good in this line.
Yeah, actually, I ended up at least 2 IE Shojin bow with a 5 component opener, and it didn't feel very good even with at least 2. So
gotcha. I think with those components, yeah, I would likely just sit and stay and play around Jhin. You could put items on the Elise early game, and then like if you let's say you have Elise 2 and not Jhin 2, it'll be annoying in that you're likely very poor because you committed into an Elise 2, but you're not going to be that weak, and your items are very good. Those are basically best Jhin items, and then you just go for like 1 glove, and then you have Last Whisper, and then you just move on to Jhin. You also have the benefit of at least giving you 3 chrome stacks every round, and so it's not like the end of the world that you're poor, and maybe you don't have like you likely like have 4 win stage 2 with that board, right? 4 win stage 2, probably a 3 win or higher stage 3, and so you'll be rich in HP even though you'll be poor.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions about this Elise variant? I didn't quite look at the board, but I mean, you can imagine it's the same. It's basically the same board. The Aurora with higher value. Sometimes this Aurora can now be an MF, right? As your extension to the board. You still play these guys if you like the item. Depends on your leftover items. You have to recognize that Jhin is also still very good in this line. So leftover 80 items can go in Jhin 2, and then eventually MF2. Maybe you find the Jhin 3. But you're not sitting here rerolling anymore if you're playing around like Elise with Elise items, right? That's a condition to play this. Is like Elise early from Orb or like really early Elise drop and you're playing around Nitro. You're already stacking it. You have raw items. Cool. Okay. So this is probably the comp that I think for a while I was underplaying. I didn't get to play much in tournament today, but I got to play a lot towards the end of the PBE ladder phase. What's really good about this comp is one, if you guys didn't know, Tibbers gives anti-heal. You have to right click on the unit to see that. It doesn't show in any spell. So you don't have to build any anti-heal in this comp, which you typically actually don't want to because this comp is very item hungry. And having seen this board succeed and not succeed, my belief now is shifted in that you actually need very, very little combat with this board. And in fact, it scales a lot more off econ and items. Because you can have a lot of these 2-star 5 costs or like 1-star 5 costs, and they don't have items, they don't do anything. But with items, they're all monsters. They all carry a lot. And this board there's a lot on this board, so I'll just explain what are the core packages and the extensions and whatnot. It wants lots of items. One big issue with this comp is that Nico 2 really, really helps your frontline. You don't always hit it instantly. 5 costs also help your frontline, but you obviously also don't hit 5 costs if you're rolling an 8. And so more 2 always is usually a good extension of this board. And if you just make it early, it can be both like good interim frontline and also a good extension eventually. It needs a ton of econ, so I would say this comp you play either from like insane win streak or from like near full open with a really good econ augment, like a prismatic econ augment, like hedge fund or like a shopping spree. Econ portal also really, really helps. Also very good off of a Cypher where you pivot your entire board off. You can probably keep LeBlanc for a little bit. Is the only unit you really keep, but don't shy away from playing this comp in Cypher. Don't think that Cypher is you must play Bastion's area. You can definitely play literally anything, but this is probably one of the best ones to play because this is one of the best comps from behind. And so the board. The core is on the top right here. Echo, Nico, Annie, Yumi. If you guys didn't know, the Annie items are very much like just casting items. But at the end of the day, you don't really need True Best and Annie. What you really, really need, from my understanding of this comp, like these can look like this even. I've seen people win games with this. Like this can be Nasher, that can be Shiv. Like Annie is basically just like popping out Tibbers and giving you like some consistent DPS. And she just sits in the back. If she dies, it really sucks because you lose a lot of frontline, you lose anti-heal, and you lose consistent DPS. Because your other units are bursty. Samira only gives you DPS on cast, really. I guess your autos do some. Viego is also like kinda he can randomly die or ult nothing. Maybe not. I guess he targets largest clump, but like, he can target, I don't know, some units that won't die right away. And then so any backline DPS is really, really core to this comp and gives you really good traits. So these are the 4 core units. And then what's the best way to make this clear? I guess I can remove these for a bit. It'd be nice to make it clear on the left side like why you're playing each of these guys. Maybe I can start a new word. Yeah, let me do that. That way. So without the 5 costs, your board looks like this. And the goal is you want to play units that, let's say you're rolling an 8, you want to play units that obviously finish Street Demon and give you Golden Ox potentially, right? You don't have to do all these things, but holding Alistar is actually not bad in this comp because it can get you. I think Mundo's the worst way to complete 3 Street Demon, but you can with this. Helps your frontline, especially when you don't have Nico too. This can also help if you find a Kabuko. This Bruiser Golden Ox is pretty good. You really want this Alistar 2-star though. It's not really worth like playing this unit. I think if it's gonna be 1-star unless the rest of your board is upgraded. I find early Kabuko, this can be very good. Kabuko is very, very good in this comp as well. And Kabuko 2 is a better tank than Nico 2. You would definitely move items off. View this unit much more as a tank than damage, and put tank items on him, and you'll be a lot happier. He does just the same damage, I feel, with damage items and no damage items, yet he is super tanky because he has a massive shield. And then to activate Street Demon without the Alistar Mundo connection, obviously you're really hoping to find a Samira, but you don't always find Samira. Brand and Mord is another way to like, if you play Brand Mord, this is why I was saying Mord 2 can be very good for your frontline. Techie is very good at Brand in that it helps your frontline as well. You can ignore that, even if you ignore the 20 AP, the main thing of this is really the 10% less damage, and Brand hits a lot of the board, right? You get Street Demon, you get Techie, you boost up your frontline a bit with this Mordekaiser, and then that's like basically the core without, and you can always add in a LeBlanc if you wanted to. LeBlanc Ziggs. LeBlanc Ziggs are like, Ziggs obviously higher prio, and especially if you 2-star it, and then LeBlanc if you're like running out of units to play and you didn't hit the 5 costs, right? Yeah, but it's fine to like not have Golden Ox. Especially, I wouldn't over-index on Golden Ox just because, like, if you're playing this board towards a good placement, you're not relying on Annie for your only DPS. You definitely want to be playing around your. This is a 5 cost kind of win out board, and so from behind it's still very good. You just have to have items on these guys, right? And you can play all these 5 costs. Garen super high value. You get Strategist mod. Viego insane. Frontline Techie. Have Techie proccing. Does a fuck ton of damage, and he heals even. Like, don't forget this guy is a healing passive, and so you can always just put all damage items on this guy, and he still will survive. Zac, extra frontline, and Senna. I've seen even people play Aurora on almost every board as a cap, and I think this is like dependent on what unit you're pulling in, but Aurora can usually make the board with most cap boards. Is there anything else I wanted to cover with this comp? I was saying best ways to play into it are off of Econ. I think it is the case that it's much easier to play this line from Lost Streak because it's not that easy to like full win streak when you're making AP items like these. You also kind of really want all these tiers because Annie's Biss is like blue buff Shojin Nasher. Not that you have to have like true Biss like that, and to get all these really good items, you kind of need to be first pick on Carousel. And it's also not very easy to win streak with these. It has to be like Yuumi Orb with like really good frontline, like a Vanguard too, stuff like that. Maybe helps you win streak with this. Early Annie, but like at that point, like pretty obvious, right? But yeah, I think Lost Streak with a lot of Econ is like, don't be afraid of dipping low in HP if you're trying to angle this line, just because this line caps out super high and wins most lobbies. I would say the board you have to be most careful of if you're like dipping to 1 life with this board, and I've definitely taken 7s and 8s being in really good spots, is this Zed board. Because Zed now is actually playable. I think the stats on it are rising by the day. Let me see how Zed stats look now under the unit page. Yeah, this guy used to be like 4.7, and then every buff, I'm pretty sure it's hard to figure out the board for him. He's going to continue to rise. But yeah, this board can if they kill your Annie, your DPS becomes so much worse. You also lose anti-heal if you're relying on Annie for anti-heal. But yeah, there are many variants of this Divinicorp board. Like Zed is not the only unit you really play when you're trying to angle this line. I would say this line is a lot better when, or like you consider this line really when you have melee item opener and like something like a Rengar Graves Orb. The other way is you have melee item opener and you're very weak and you have like an econ option. So like things like Shopping Spree or Hedge Fund, and your items are like Sword Chain, Sword Cloak. Sword Cloak is probably like the most like, because you can't combine those into anything strong. Right? When you're Sword Cloak Chain, like what are you making anytime soon to actually spike? It's very hard because your items are going to be split no matter what unless you combine them. And if you just go like Stoneplate plus Sword, you can end up in a spot where you have split items for a lot of the game. And so it's much better, I think, to plan around combining all your items from the get-go, and you just commit to playing into one of these lines with like a BT Titans. You go for a bow off of Carousel, and then at that point you already have 2 item carry, right? And then you just go for your 3rd item, and then you can start building towards everything else. And there are many variants here. I would say you decide the variant based on how much gold and HP you'll have on stage 4. This depends on a lot of things. It depends on the portal you're playing. Is it an econ portal or not? Your augment, you take an econ augment or not? How strong are you going to be on like 3 or obviously you want to play around 5 costs, but if you're already going to be very strong on 3 or 4 costs because of your augment, maybe you have really good combat augment and you're poor, or you have like things like preparation, right? Then maybe you can stabilize off of the cheaper units. I realized, okay, I guess I didn't bold it, but Vayne should also be bolded. I mean, we can go over this line afterwards. It's like sort of a variant of the Zed of the Slayer board, but not really. They're quite different in that you don't play on melee when you're playing Vayne typically. Like later on you play on Zed, but it's not part of your main game plan. So the main variants of this Divinicorp board, this is like less Divinicorp, more like Slayer. Is I link the wrong one. It's fine. It's pretty easy to make that. Oh, it's the same board. It's the same as this. Cool. I think the Z5 cost 1 is slightly different, but so your core in this one is really just Zed Senna, and what you decide to play around that depends on the 5 costs that you find and don't find. If you're poor, you tend to play more around this board on 8. The Morgana is like whatever, but this is like basically the more rod items you have, the more you lean towards playing around a Vex as like a potential like Morello holder or like a duo, the less Vex items you have, you can even consider dropping these two and playing 6 Slayer. If you're literally just Senna and Zed, like there's no reason to play around the Vex at that point anymore, and you have no Renekton, then why are we like juicing up more Divinicorp for a bunch of units that aren't that useful? You can even play the shitters, the Vayne and the Shaco, especially if you're poor, right? But the richer you are, the more you find these units, the more you start to think about dropping. You can even drop the 2 Slayer, or you can drop these guys, and then now we're playing mostly around like this board, right? Garen obviously really specs his board with a Zed to give him Divinicorp mod. One thing about Zed, you typically want to position him like third from edge. I think this goes to like can go to like an opposite corner. You guys probably already know this already. This goes here potentially, and this goes here potentially. If the unit, by the way, that you're trying to kill has healing on it, or is a unit that you expect is hard to kill, like a Samira that like jumps around, it's actually pretty valuable to kill like a bunch of shitters because it makes his next cast very highly likely to kill the other cornered unit. And also you kill a bunch of supporting units and really lower the DPS/CC of your opponents just by killing all the shitter units, supporting units. So just because you're wrong side, I mean, sometimes the wrong side is opposite side. The right side is the opposite side of the carry. It just depends. And then so yeah, I guess this covered basically both the 4 Divinicorp, 4 Slayer, and like if you're rich, these are both rolling on 8, playing around like mostly 4 costs. I guess just one more thing on this is just to trust that if you have good items, Zed, really pretty good combat, you hit 2-star pretty early, especially if you can get the Renekton, you don't have to be that scared. Like you can be pretty low in HP. This board is quite strong. What's annoying about it is sometimes the Zed will just troll and like jump around, but I think since the Zed fix where he whiffs his ult less, it's become a lot more reliable. And so like yeah, there'll be a few fights that Zed can look annoying, but if you have a really good board, good combat, you can beat a lot of really strong boards. I think that the unit that you have really difficulty with is a Renekton 2 and Samira, because Samira can dodge your Zed a lot, it can jump around, and then Viego as well. Like the juiced up melee units and Samira are like your biggest nightmares with this comp, I want to say. But if the more your opponent is relying on an Annie to be their like main source of stability for the comp, the less worried you are, because Zed can clear Annie very easily. So yeah, I guess knowing your opponent's spots can also help, like you know how low in HP you can get, you're willing to go to, and still sort of be in a win out spot, because you typically have to play. It's a board where you really have to hit a 2-star Zed or Renekton on 8, which means you have to be rich, which typically means you're playing from behind. Again, you can also play Cypher into this if you're like Cypher with melee items. And then the strongest variant of this line, which usually is like really lost streak with like a prismatic and like a prismatic econ / gold econ and like an econ portal, is play more around 5 cost. And here you're willing to play around a lot of Divinicorp. And then you play any mix of these. You can play, I don't know why I don't have Aurora here. You also play Aurora, where your core is just the Divinicorp units, and ideally roll a 9 here. If you're trying to play this board rolling on 8, you better have like high-end shopping or something. But it's very strong. Obviously, you're playing on Renekton. You can also get Bastion in this. If you're playing Little Buddies, you can consider like a Poppy if you're going to hit like Kabuko and Renekton. Gives you Bastion and Cyber Boss. I think you only consider this in Little Buddies though. I don't think you ever just play a Poppy on your board for no reason besides that. And then anything we want to comment on this? I think the Zed items can differ based on the variant you're playing. The more Slayer you are, I think the more your build is like upfront damage, and so you want to just kill stuff ASAP. And so your Zed is more like a Hodge IE, I think. Whereas the more Divinicorp you are, and if you have Divinicorp mod on him, you can kind of go infinite. And be a massive stat stick, and so then the more you're willing to make items like Titans, I think, and the less you want items like Edge of Night, because you actually want him to, you don't mind him taking aggro. Starax is very good in this line, both on Renekton. It's very good on Renekton, and because he gets HP, right, and then he'll scale it when he procs Starax from eating a unit, right, and then Zed also has very high base HP, and so Starax also very good on him. I haven't mentioned this yet in the session, but the Senna items are very specific. The Senna items, Senna is a very good duo in all these lines. In this line especially, sorry, this is linked to the wrong one. In this line especially, you want, like, very optimally, your items look like this. Very optimally. Senna is a unit that, if you guys didn't already know, it does all her damage from her, maybe not all, but like majority of her damage, consistent damage comes from her autos, which is really high DPS. Her ult's kind of slow, and sometimes she doesn't hit that many units randomly. And so if you look at the stats, you'll see this as well. That things like, you really don't want to make things like Shojin, IE, and Rage. Rage Blade is another like really potentially bad item, especially in that setup. There's some setups where it can be like not trash, like 6 Vanguard Senna or 6 Bruiser Senna. But if you look at the stats here, you don't want to be making IE. Like in comparison, like ignore the placement change, just compare this to the other items. It's so much worse because her DPS comes from not her cast. Rage Blade, her base AS is really low, and Shojin, again, same thing as IE. Her damage comes from not her cast. And so you want to make Runans. Last Whisper is also like, I think any bow item in general is like not that amazing on her just because of her really low base AS. I would still wouldn't like be opposed to putting Last Whisper on her, but like ideally you only have the juicer items on her, and then she really pops off. It almost feels like a 3.5 cost, 4 cost almost at 2-star. If you get stuck on 8 in this variant, the 4 Slayer 4 Divinicorp, ignore the, like, take out these 5 costs. It's 4 I think, right? 4. You can chase Senna 3 if it's not contested, and it can be very, very good. There's another variant of this which doesn't play on Zed, which we'll get to in a sec, which is around Vayne Senna. But yeah, you obviously go for Senna 3 in that line as well. Any questions around this Divinicorp line? Okay, if not, the TF line is very simple, but again, you're saying that this TF line can net you really solid placements, is good from like Rage Blade item opener or like Rod. You don't know what to do, you have Rods and you're weak. This is probably a line that I would often consider. Like Rod Belt, I don't know, Rod Belt Chain, I guess, Rod Belt Cloak, and you're weak. I think TF is a very good out because Rod Belt Cloak and you're weak already feels like you're playing for a placement. And being weak actually helps you play TF because then you get your bow and you can get your Rage Blade, which you really need in this comp, right? Yeah, I don't like slamming Spark anymore in those spots. I don't know if I ever did, but I definitely don't like it now, especially when you're not that strong. Like slamming Spark or slamming Morello, I feel like you just threw your whole game because now you have no core items and you are weak. So like, why even make those items? Just make carry items. And so this TF board plays eventually around 5 Syndicate, but the core like mid game, I'll just have these two open so I can flip back and forth if needed. But like the level 6 board is typically you get your choice of these units. I tend to not really value like Skarner 3, Cog, or like Boombot that much. A lot of people have this in their tier list for this comp, or like their like guide for this comp. I found that Draven is actually so good and gives you like a lot of DPS that you don't sometimes have. Like TF gives you a lot of ramping DPS, but sometimes, especially if you got extra items from something like a buried treasure or something that is good for this comp. Draven Duo and even sometimes the 3-star can be very, very good. Draven 2 Naked is still good DPS. I think it's a lot better than Cogma Skarner in my opinion. It's just sometimes you don't hit him 2-star, and so you may as well play Cog and Skarner at that point. If it's not Skarner 2, I don't think I'll play. I'm pretty sure I would always just play 2-star frontliners. And then obviously if you're playing Cog, eventually let's say you're Gragas 1, you can play I don't know if Show 1 is better than Gragas 2. It's definitely not better than Gragas 2. I don't know if 1-star, which one's better. I would assume it's a Show, but I'm not sure. But yeah, this comp, you guys didn't know, TF already gains AP from his passive, and so you don't really want him. I don't think you really want him casting that much even, because he starts to lose every second he spends casting is a second he's not autoing. And the second he's not autoing is a second he's not gaining AP. And so I'm pretty sure you want him autoing as much as possible, which is why Double Rage Blade is really, really core in this guy. Double Rage Gunblade tends to be the build most people do. I don't think it's absolutely necessary. I think this is good if you have really good frontline items. I've definitely done well in this comp without this though. I think Double Rage, or like single Rage with some AS augment is almost necessary. I think single Rage and no AS is he feels really, he doesn't even ramp is what it feels like. I feel like you really want the double or some AS. And then third item being like a JG, or like a guard, or maybe even a GS is like not the end of the world. In that setup, I feel like you don't need as much, you don't get as much value out of Insane Frontline because you're not healing it up anyway. And so in that scenario, like you don't mind having things like Sunfire Spark, I think. But if you are playing like this build, especially the Gunblade one, and I think even with some damage ones, you need to view this as like a scaling comp. And if you haven't had this opinion on scaling comps already, you probably should try to think about it now, in that items like Sunfire and Spark are actually very mid. Because you do a lot more damage when your Rage Blade stacks are higher, and you can win fights in that way, much more than even without Shred or Anti-Heal. Because having no Shred or Anti-Heal, but like a 60 stack Rage Blade is much better, in my opinion, than having Shred and Anti-Heal, but your frontline dies and you're at 30 stacks. And so I would much rather, if I'm playing around this build, even if I'm sitting on components that can make Sunfire, I'd much rather make things like, I don't know, Warmogs, Vow, where are these items? Adaptive, Redemption, things like these. I'd much rather make these first. And then like later, if we get the Shred, then sure, we can make the other stuff. Like worst case scenario, like you really need Shred against a 6 Bastion unit, which by the way, the reason why I think it's not as important nowadays is in the current patch at least, is 6 Bastion has been nerfed so much that people aren't playing Bastions as much. The Shred is not like, you don't lose the game if you don't have Shred. You lose the game if you don't have Frontline. You don't lose the game if you don't have Shred in these double Rage Blade type comps. Let's see, what else is there to say about this comp? If you have a lot of combat, you don't really need, you definitely want 3-star frontliners. You obviously want 3-star TF, but I've had games where I was playing a 4v4 scrim with some really good players, and they were denying my TF3. I had insane combat. I forgot what it was, but it was like quadruple combat because there was a 1v2 augment selection, and I pushed with TF2 the whole game and took top 3, I think. Top 4 or top 3. Like the whole board just 2-starred. You get the MF, it's just it goes to say that this comp is very, very strong with good combat and good items, such that you can rely on the augments, the OP unit in TF. Braum is also very good now, and really good itemization to carry your game without even having the 3 stars. Which means obviously you don't want to play the whole board 2-star, but like if you're 3-star TF and good combat, you can try to like play a good game around hitting like your Aurora, your MF itemized, instead of like sitting there and banging your head against the wall. Like, why am I low rolling Braum? Why am I low rolling Darius? I can't 3-star them. Just push levels if you feel like you're strong anyway. Just trust that this board is strong, because TF is still quite overtuned. This setup is very hard to deal with like insane frontline with good combat. And by good combat, I mean things like bulky, it's things that help you scale, right? So like bulky buddies, Spirit Link can be very good. AS augments if you don't have double Rage Blade can be very good. I think things like preparation are less good in this comp. It's probably still fine, but anything that gives flat stats is not as good, right? Because TF is already gains a bunch of AP, and I don't think flat stats help the other guys all that much.
Sorry, just a quick question on that.
Yeah.
When you get to like the 5 Syndicate, because I had it earlier, so I had Braum 3 and Darius 3. And I kept sort of flip flap the items between them because everyone else, I've obviously like the Braum Syndicate bonus isn't very good.
They did buff it recently, and I feel like
Okay.
Braum. If anything, I feel like Darius is quite bad, and I'm not even sure if he's better than Braum 2, to be honest. Darius, I feel like the times I played on Darius 3, I mean, it is very nice to have the HP and the extra body, but I feel like this guy just dies later into the game. Early game, he feels good, he does some damage. Later into the game, the damage is negligible. His Thunder doesn't do anything for your board. And like, if you look at this guy's, I don't feel like this guy's Kingpin bonus is also that insane. Like, it does more damage and heals a little more, but like, you look at these numbers, they look super mid as well. So like, if you did believe that the Braum Kingpin bonus is bad, which they did buff it, but if you believe this is bad, make sure you're considering it against the Darius one, which in my opinion is worse. So yeah, I've always tried to default to Braum, and Braum 3 really caps this board. And if you look at the stats, Braum 3, I mean, it's pretty obvious, I guess. Like, the stats probably just indicate someone who's able to hit everything and super rich, but I mean, you'll see that Braum 3 is such a big jump over like just having the Darius 3. And then yeah, I think any other thoughts on this comp? I guess recognizing that without insane combat and hitting, let's say you take things like a Starry Night or some Econ Augment or like Pandora's. So you can take Pandora's in this line. You just have to recognize what you're playing for. If you take those, you're representing playing for like a 3rd through 5th, and you have to play the game appropriately, right? You have to like make sure you're not greeting all your gold. You can roll to like near 0 on level 6 on like stage 4 to take your 3-star TF, and make sure you are playing your game plan around a 3rd through 5th and not trying to like greed 50 the whole game and then you just die anyway. Because you only really take a really good placement on this board if you play it in such a way that you're taking all combat and you still hit, which you're allowed to do, right? It just depends. So you start the game with TF pair and perfect items, then sure, then you can take a combat. You can even take like there's the ones that give you like a TF, then you can make your TF2, and then you're playing the game from like rich and copies. You don't need a reroll augment. Then you can play for like more like a top 2 style of gameplay mid game, and you greed your HP a little bit. That's pretty standard in most reroll comps. It just goes. It's worth saying for this line because with reroll and without, like this comp, I think scales a lot with combat and items as well, especially if you're playing on like a Draven or a Misfortune. Cool. There's nothing else on this syndicate line. Let me finish the last bolded one, and then we can ask if anyone has like specific lines they want to go over. But I think I'm down to call it after. I'll like briefly like touch on some stuff I guess after this Vayne Senna one, and then people can say if they really want any of these lines to be covered. I would say the other lines are still very much playable. I wouldn't even call them fringe lines, but I would say the meta is definitely converging around, in my opinion, around the ones that I'm going over right now. Currently, it's definitely still worth knowing everything though, obviously, because like things get nudged in both directions, nerfs and buffs, then you'll want to know everything. And I will say this is definitely not everything. This is just like majority of the stuff I've been seeing. Okay, so this is the Vayne Senna line. You want to angle this if you have lots of bows and Vayne copies, I would say. Starry Night also pretty good in this one. Vayne usually really wants Rage Blade, unless I don't even know why you wouldn't. Like maybe if you had like some AS augment and like the Runance augment is very very good in this line because it's good on both Vayne and Senna. You definitely want a lot of bows because ideally you get to itemize both Vayne and Senna. I think it's easier when you have the Runance augment. But you can also just play around like one backliner and Zed is also fine. But I think it's better with a bunch of backliners because you end up just abusing you can abuse 6 Vanguard. And so the variant you play depends on how many backliner items you have. If you only have one like backliner item, like one set of backliner items, you drop the Mundo and Senna. Right? You just play 6 Vanguard. And if you find I think you roll it just depends on how many Vaynes you have to decide if you're rolling on 7 or 6. Because the comp is much like the board fits much better on 7. Right? You drop these 2 units. This is level 7. You play these 2 units, you drop these 2. They're both level 7, and so then rolling on 7 is much better. You also give yourself better odds for Senna. It just depends on your HP and how many Vayne copies you have. Because sometimes it's just worth sitting 6 if you're already close to Vayne and just finish off the Vayne on 6, and then you can push 7. But yeah, what makes this comp OP is Vayne is still very very strong despite like the last 10 mana nerf. Does really good with items like Rage Blade, Runance. Senna is also insane if you just itemize it properly with these items, like I said earlier. And these items show why Runance augment is very good. It's OP on both of them already, and so obviously the augment giving you the item and making the item stronger is insane. They even nerfed it, and I'm pretty sure it's still very, very good if you play this comp. Yeah, I don't know if there's much else to say. I feel like you have duo backliner, you play the Force Slayer. You have single backliner, you play the 6 Vanguard. If you have like melee AD items and you're not fighting Senna, or like you find Senna and not Vayne, you don't even have to play the Vayne. You can just play you don't have to play Anima Squad, or you can play like a Zed here. So just recognize that like you're not forced to play around. Just it's like some mix of Zed, Senna, and Vayne. Yeah, and then you can opt to play like more Slayers versus Vanguards. You can maybe even opt to like Renekton. They start to like have some minor overlap with the Divinicorp board. It just depends on the items you have and what rolling intervals you have. The more reroll you are, the more you're Senna Vayne, right? And you're more backliner items. Any thoughts on this line?
Do you have any preference for which 2-cost tank to itemize in the early game? Do you think any of them are stronger than the others?
2-cost tank. So the way I've been maneuvering early game is really trying to play around these. I would say mostly like either if I'm playing like a Bruiser or Vanguard, and it really depends on whichever one you're 2-starring. To be honest, I feel like it's usually always gonna be the case that you want the item on the 2-star unit over. If you have two 2-star units, I'm trying to think what are good comparisons. It would be like Vi or Silas. It would be Alistar or Mundo. These are probably like the best the scenarios where like you're deciding.
Yeah, like Alawi Shyvana sometimes, but yeah.
Oh, you'll barely have them both too. Like how many games are you?
Right, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
On stage 2 or even by stage 3, if you're trying both of those, it's very rare.
That's true. That's true.
To be honest, I don't know if I have a great answer for that. I feel like Vi feels really good over Silas, but I haven't played enough games to really give you like a straight answer on this. Is A is definitely better than B. On the Bruiser line, I feel like Alistar with the DR can be very good because he has it's not DR, his passive of reducing flat damage. I feel like Alistar is very, very good early game, stage 2. Mundo with like more items is better because he scales off the HP better and probably scales into stage 3 a little better. The 2-star tanks, I tend to hear that people say Alawi is very good. I don't think I've had enough games of playing around the 2-star itemized Alawi and also with 2-star itemized Shyvana to like give a solid answer at the moment on that comparison. The other comparisons would be the 2-star Vanguards, so Kane and Skarner. And again, I don't think I've played enough games where I've played with a 2-star Skarner and a 2-star. I seem to see Skarner do very well. I'll put it that way. Like itemized Skarner too, I feel like I see that do very well very often. And conversely, I don't think I've seen like an itemized 2-star Kane with like tank items do. I just haven't seen that very often. I feel like people are playing on the Skarner more. So my guess is that the Skarner one is better.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but in general, obviously, it's just your 2-star tanks that you're itemizing. Any other thoughts on the Vayne line? Okay, if not, I'll briefly go over all this stuff like very, very briefly, and then if people have specific comps they want to go over, either you can type it in chat. I haven't been looking at chat, so let me see if people are asking anything. No one's asking anything. If you don't want to speak up, you can type in chat or just speak up. Either way is fine. So the Marksman Vanguard AD line, I typically like to play from ahead with the Vanguard pairs. I don't think this comp like caps super high unless you're playing from way ahead, which is why I feel like playing from high HP is good, and that you even though you don't win out, you can play a solid game around Vanguards, which is really good. And then Xayah, Aphelios duo, Xayah, Jhin with Dynamo, what's her name, Aurora, it can be very good. One thing to note in this line is if your items are more for Xayah, which I think should be the case because Aphelios is kind of shit, is you can flex into MF. Because MF, I don't think either of these lines are like you're going to guarantee win most games, even from ahead, but playing from ahead and you hit the 2-star forecast like reasonably on tempo, you can definitely take like top 3 placements. You can flex into MF because MF can also use basically the same front line. The main thing with MF is like you kind of need a duo. You don't want to rely on just your ult because sometimes that ult can leave units with a little bit of HP and then you have no other source of damage. A bunch of units do still so much with their little HP. And so you want your 2-star Elise holding the Aurora items. You want your Aurora early, obviously, on 8, which is quite nice. But duo Elise is also still very good. And then I would say on the Bruiser side, 6 Bruiser is quite a bit worse. If you look at the stats, it was super busted right before the most recent nerf to this trait. But this trait now is just like, it's just whatever. 6 Bruiser is ignore the letters. It's a 4.2, which is a lot worse than what it used to be. 6 Vanguard, I'm pretty sure is like, like look how much worse 6 Bruiser and 6 Vanguard. And the units are like the same cost. And so it's just the trait is overtuned at 6 versus like, I would say 6 Bruiser feels like balanced. I only really like to play around Bruiser when you have, I think that this reinforcing skeleton augment is good. I have done well with it a few times already. I don't think I see other people take it very often. I've taken it at least like 4 times now. I've done well in these games. Usually it's when I already have Bruisers and I'm kind of weak and I'm down for my board to just die early game and you keep stacking HP on all your guys. And in these Bruiser games, Fiddle is actually quite a bit worse. I had a game today where I hit 6 Boombot, 6 Bruiser with 2 Spats, Urgot 2, Fiddle 3 on like not even like behind tempo. I think Urgot 2 on 8, and I went 3rd to like non-insane boards. So I'm pretty sure, and I played many Fiddle games. I'm not over-indexing like the one game I played today. This Fiddle board is a lot worse than it used to be, and so you have to be quite selective with these. Either you have the units early, you have Biss instantly, you have with artifacts. I think it can be very good. Snipers, Blighting are insane on Fiddle. Talisman can either go on Show or Fiddle. Just depends on who you expect. If you expect the Show to live more to like actually proc it, I think it's better on Show. If not, Fiddle. And Innervating and Visage on Show are very, very good. I think even more if you're taking like Living Forge. I think this is one of the best lines for playing Living Forge because you can even take things like Unending Despair, more 3. Obviously these artifacts. Even like a what is the item? The one that makes clones can be really good on the 6 Bruiser unit, especially that 3-star Gragas or 3-star Mord. Can take you just dupe that unit with I forget the name of the artifact. Yes, that's the Bruiser line. I don't think this one. There's like Bruiser Marksman I've played a few times. It's like if you're playing Rageblade and then like maybe TF is contested and Xayah is contested and you have Bruiser opener, you can try to play for like a 4th with Aphelios. 6 Bruiser. Same thing with Senna. It's like, why would you play this line when you can play the Vanguard variant? Just recognize that this is a line. Like if you are high rolling both these sides, you're high rolling Bruisers and you're high rolling Senna. This is definitely a line. You can play around because you're 3/3 cost, right? You have Senna, you have Gragas, you have Mord, and you have Slayer for free. With I played it at least twice on ladder, or not on ladder, on PBE. I guess I'm calling it ladder because there was a ladder phase of Project PBE. But I played this at least twice, and it's not bad. It scales, and this is like the one variant, and maybe even the 6 Vanguard variant of Senna, where you're only Senna and not Vayne. that Rage Blade Senna I think is acceptable, because even though she procs it slowly with her AS, if you do have 6 Bruiser Senna or 6 Vanguard Senna, your fight will last very long. I think Rage Blade is acceptable in Senna in those scenarios. Otherwise, I think your DPS will start to fall off because you don't scale into the fight with your front line. Bash and Zeri, I think I went over already in the beginning of the call. I went over this, went over that, went over this. Verticals. I haven't played Anima enough, to be honest. I don't even feel like it would be much value for me to go over this line. I haven't played vertical Anima almost at all, really. I've seen it do well every now and then, but my read on it is it's from tempo. Could be wrong. It's like from tempo and you really want Aurora on 8. So that's how I view this line. Street Demon, I need to play more. I played it once today, and it went actually fairly well. I think this line is more appealing when you're forced to make damage AP items like JG and Shojin, because when you make this and you're forced to roll an 8, when you make this, you don't really want to play on Annie, right? Shojin, JG. You don't mind playing on Annie if you're guaranteed to hit Viego, because then JG goes in Viego, Shojin goes on Annie. But if you're not guaranteed to hit this and you're rolling on 8 and you find an early Nico, early Brand, 7 Street Demon is still. What does that say about this? I saw it a lot in like in houses and it went well for me as well today in game. Yeah, it's still pretty good. 4.1. You obviously want to get to Samira, but I wouldn't not consider this line like a thing. This is definitely still like a line. Most especially when you're forced to play. Like the reason why you'd be forced to make a Shojin JG is you make like a Vanguard 2. You have these components sitting and you make a Vanguard 2, you must make these items, right? Because otherwise you make the Vanguard 2 and you sit in these components, then you're going to be poor and you're not even going to win streak. And so if you're making a bunch of upgrades, you must invest into the board, right? To get the win streak and get your investments, get the worth out of your investment into your units. And at that point, you're kind of forced to play around either like a Ziggs, which I think is worse than just playing around Street Demon. Yeah, I haven't seen Ziggs pop off so much. If you noticed that, we haven't mentioned him at all. I feel like he's just a supporting unit in the Strategist line, and he can hold some items, but I feel like you're not very happy if you're really relying on him. And then Executioner, I think it's still very good. It can be insane at things like Cooking Pot on early Rengar. I have tended to like just try to angle these lines when I have early Rengar, but if you're naturally a bunch of Rengars, then and the other thing would be Pan, because 5 Executioner is so hard to get to when you're rerolling Executioners, and there's no like tempo Executioner. If you're gonna commit to playing Executioner, you must reroll the Rengar. Usually on 7. I mean, in some games you can try and roll an 8, but the Pan really helps because then you're guaranteed 5 Executioner. I don't think you're willing to like, but not circlet. I think I'm pretty sure all these circlets are awful unless they give you like a chase trait, which 5 Executioner does not count as that. But yeah, this is still very strong, I think, with like Artifact, and hitting the Rengar like pretty early with good combat preparation, things like that, and Pan for 5 Executioner. And you can win out with this comp as well. Yeah, let's like a quick overview of the non like bolded comps. Did anyone have any one of these comps that they wanted to see in more detail? Have any questions about? If not, I think that's basically all I have. Any just open the floor. Just any remaining questions about any of these lines?
Just one from me. It's not really about like, these lines, but like when playing Cypher, is there a number in your head you're trying to get to? Like obviously Kenban 500 was the key. I know Fortune like 90 was when you could get like the 2-star Elise and 2-star Xayah, which is like typically the win out sort of number. I've been playing it a bit, and it's been doing fine. I'm just like the catch-up seem really mixed depending on what level you get to.
Yeah, I was trying to rely more on specific ones when the cash outs. The cash outs are updated pretty recently, and so I was of the opinion that so I think in general I tend to not chase given numbers with a Cypher compared to Kenbaron because the cash outs are pretty generic. With Kenbaron, like you know very like well what you're getting because the intervals are very easy to you'll like see every interval basically. You'll see 100, 200, 300 you're given options. Whereas with this, like you're not guaranteed to even have the option to see some of these, right? And so I feel like planning around a specific one is quite difficult, such that you kind of just consider each one as you see it. Like on 3-7, you see what you're getting, and you consider your spot, you consider your opponent's spots that are also trying to win out, and you say, am I playing for first? And if so, can this cash out reliably get me a first? And that's hard to say, right? There are some scenarios where, for example, a bunch of dupes can get you puts you one off a Draven 3, and you have good Draven items. Like, you can definitely lead into that, right? If you feel like your lobby you can do very well in your lobby with a Draven 3. And then yeah, so I think a lot of it depends on like what placement you're playing for, and if you're trying to truly win out, you'll kind of know. Like I guess it's not the most straightforward answer, but like the thing is, a lot of these are super random, right? Like I think with Kenbaron, I could tell you if you found Executioner's Chainblade 2 on Smeech, you take it. If not, like you consider taking it and reforging. Or the thing is with this, I can't tell you what radiant item you're gonna get. I can't tell you what artifacts is. I can't tell you what radiant item this is. I can't tell you what unit this is. And so it's really hard to index on them. What I will say is that if you're cashing out a fairly small one, I had thought that this one is super reliable. 225 feels like a guaranteed like a gold augment. Yeah, golden remover plus 2. I think these are components. This one feels like the worst one. 2 components and gold remover, but it's still like okay. It's probably less than a gold augment. This one is a gold augment. Literally, it's portable forge, and this one I think gives you a random one though. And then this one, I forget now if it's random or anvil. I'm not sure anymore. And this one is support. So I was opinion that 225. If you feel like all you need is some combat and you'll take a good placement, placing your spot, this is much more reliable than 250 and even 290. 290 is probably better, but it's a little like up in the air. Whereas this one you're guaranteed to get basically a gold augment, right? What else? There is a double one. Oh, go ahead.
So I was saying, like, if you go back to the last page with the bottom right, the 330, I got offered the one with just the units. and I was like, I had probably enough HP to maybe tank like 1 or 2 good losses. Do you ever try and gamble it and push? Because like you're really say like you were full AD items, for example, and you get offered all the AP techies. Would you ever skip that, or just say I have to take it and then just sell them and try and hit your board that way?
Oh yeah, I definitely do. I am definitely willing to dip to 1 life if you feel like this cash out is some trash. Like let's say you get this. I think I've skipped this one at least once or twice. Let's say you're sitting on like 2.5 lives on 3-7, and you get offered this. I'm not really down to. I mean, maybe I'm really missing something here, but this to me looks super untakeable. The techie one. Maybe if you've matched out the Viego or something by 37, but I don't really see why you're willing to take this. Why you would be willing to take this? And so then I'm willing to play the game in 1 life rather than take this and just go with anyway. Right? Maybe you take this and maybe you can go 6. Maybe I'm missing something and I'm just wrong about it. But in my opinion, you take this your 8th. Just dip to 1 life and play for a not 8th, right? Which is like we're not even a first, right? If you get something insane. But yeah, I definitely am willing to skip some trash and dip to 1 life. This one used to be awful, but they added a bunch of reforgers to it, and so this one I think is not nearly as bad anymore. On 410, it's still not good, but 4 reforgers is a lot. So maybe you can get something insane here. What else do I remember being noteworthy? Yeah, I think I played around a good amount of these. This one seems really bad, the 500 one, but I mean, it's only 25%. Like you obviously you can't like tell yourself I'm gonna not play on 500. Like it's very challenging to do that. So yeah, the one I really try to game the most is this one, if ever. It's the 225 versus 200 and 250. Because 250, unless you can really use a spat, I feel like it's not guaranteed to be an augment's worth of strength for you versus 225. That's my thought though.
Cool. And then sorry, how late are you willing to put it in? Like obviously I know earlier the better.
Definitely super late. So it is a very good strat to play around. There are many ways around Cypher and previous cash out trades, but if you win streak stage 2, you can play Cypher stage 3. You should definitely be willing to play Cypher if you feel like your board is already guaranteed to lose rounds anyway. So let's say you're sitting 100 HP, you're going into 3-1 and you're like, wow, how the fuck did I 5-win this stage? My board is piss weak, but I 5-1. And now you're sitting on 3-1, you look at your matchups and they're all strong, and you look at your shop and you have 3 Cypher. Just play your strongest board with 3 Cypher on it. You already saved all this HP stage 2. And now you can basically add 1 combat's worth of strength, combat augment's worth of strength to your board. You should definitely be willing to play that. You sack, maybe it's like 15 HP, which you would not have won streak anyway. And so you may as well like sack a little bit of HP for a gold augment's worth of strength. You can do the same again on stage 4, right? If you 100 streak stage 2 and 3, usually you can be in a spot where you want to fast 9, right? And when you're fast 9ing, you're losing stage 4 anyway. Why not just lose, but now you get something out of it, right? And so you should be willing to play Cypher. You should always be considering Cypher, basically, is the point.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're not considering it is when your board is strong, such that you're expecting to win most of your fights. You don't play it then, unless you really want to play for like a win out for whatever reason. And then what are other reasons? If you're playing a low cap board or line, or low-ish cap, you don't want to play it. Or let's say you're playing some reroll line with like a reroll augment, and you find 3 Cypher in your shop. Even if your board is weak, I would say you don't play it, because all you're going to do is add maybe a silver augment. You can think of it this way. If you get like a small cash out here, right, which you can if you play it for like 1 stage, you gain like a silver augment. If you like cash out like a 225 to 250, 290, maybe these are like gold augments. Maybe this is like teetering on prismatic. This one is basically is almost prismatic in some odds. And then higher than this is like prismatic, and then maybe even more, right? You just have to look at your spot and say, if I sack HP for a silver augment, does that sound like worth, right? And depending on your comp, it could be. If you're playing for a really high cap, adding a silver augment could actually help you, secure your first, your second. If you're playing like a TF reroll comp where you don't even have insane combat augments, adding a silver augment doesn't really do anything for you when someone is playing Cypher themselves or someone is playing a 5-cost line. You'll just lose even with any of these, right? And so you may as well preserve all your HP, so you take a 3rd instead of a 5th instead of a 7th, right? But yeah, I would say you should definitely always be thinking pretty thoroughly through, like, should I play Cypher or should I not? In fact, I've even seen people like play it through like stage 5. Like, it really just depends. And you cash out the 5-3. So yeah, you should definitely be always considering it.
Cool. And then if you get grief, like I had a game where I had it on 2-1, got briefed on 2-5, which was like one of the worst times. Do you just commit to the cash out on 3-3, or do you try and salvage like a 3-7 still? Because I think I ended up going 3-7, but I only got like 225, 250, but I was on like 30 HP for sacking 2 stages basically.
I think it really, again, just depends on your board. So if your board is going to be pretty weak anyway, let's say you get your streak griefed on 2-6, right? Now you're sitting on 2-7, you have some shit cash out. If you are to like take the cash out and leave Cypher, are you even going to be strong? Is the question. Sometimes usually the answer to that is going to be no, because when you were playing Cypher, you were likely not even holding units anymore. You started making econ intervals, right? Like if you're playing Cypher stage 2, you typically sell off everything except Cypher units. And so if you then try to pivot into playing a real board, you're likely going to be behind tempo. And if you're going to be behind tempo, typically you just opt to keep getting, like, you convert your silver augment into a gold augment, right? And again, back to this, what you were saying earlier of like, okay, I would say if you get your streak griefed and you have like some direction for some line. So a good example would be, let's say you were wanting to angle Xayah for whatever reason. Let's say you have Rage Blade, Cypher, you want to play Xayah, and then you get your streak griefed by someone who also is likely playing Xayah. And let's say they have 4 Cypher, you have 3. At that point, this guy is going to take a really good placement, right? They're likely playing for like a first. And so now you can opt to play something like a TF, right? On like 3-2, you roll on 3-2. And in that case, I would take the cash out on 2-7, because at that point, you're playing for a lower cap board and you can salvage a placement with that. The alternative would be you don't have direction, such that you're not really able to roll for a board on 3-2. So you may as well just keep juicing up your Cypher and get a bigger cash out.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep. Cool. Any other thoughts, questions about anything before we wrap up? All right. If not, that's all I got. But yeah. Hope this helped. And I'll be still playing a lot of PBEs. Let me know if you have any more questions about stuff, thoughts, and yeah. See you guys just in the Discord. Catch you
Good luck
later.
tomorrow, Marcel.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Marcel.
Great. Thank you.
See you guys later.